And then we have credits rolling.
Woo!
Welcome, Ignite.
Oh my God, you guys are so professional.
Welcome, Igniters. I'm so happy that you logged on with us. Those of you on Roku TV and on Facebook and all of the streaming channels, we have a treat today. We have our guest, Dame Doria Cordova. But before we bring her onto the stage, I'd like to share with you a few of her accomplishments. Let's roll that now.
There's an old adage, don't mistake kindness for weakness. And Dame Doria Cordova, also known as DC Cordova, is not only a heart-centered and very kind individual, she is also very capable and tough as nails, especially in the forum of entrepreneurship. Names like Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Ben Cohen, Paul Mitchell, Robert Kiyosaki, Sharon Lecter, Forbes, Riley, and many more of their fame and reputation have Dame Doria DC Cordova in common, as well as the Money and You Accelerated Business School for Entrepreneurship programs. As CEO and owner of Accelerated Business School's Money and You, the organization that brought to the world entrepreneurial transformational educational programs since 1979, both on and offline, to over 200,000 graduates in over 85 countries, has touched the lives of millions globally. She is a global business developer, humanitarian, philanthropist, best-selling author, and now on Ignite, your Essence talk show. Dame Doria, welcome.
Wow, that's incredible. Oh, thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction.
Well, there was so much about you that we didn't want to ask all of these questions because we really wanted to get into the meat of the subject, and that is you. We're going to be able to have a treat today to be able to delve into your mind and heart. And I have to say, Dame Doria, one of my goals is to be able to really connect my mind and heart together. And you seem to do it so seamlessly. We're talking about igniting your essence, and you go within and you also come without, and you've connected with so many people. I remember we were discussing one day about you, and you have met with President Bill Clinton, you've met with Fidel Castro. It's such a cadre of characters of the world, and billionaires have you on speed dial. And so the fascinating thing is that you're the most heart-centered and humble individual that I have come across, and many as well. And then on top of that, you're a dame, knighted for your philanthropy and also your leadership. So what I wanted to kind of delve into first is, why did you go into entrepreneurship? I know you started with a career of law, and then you exploded somewhere. What ignited you?
Pain. I was trying to get out of pain. I was very much working on myself at the time. I didn't know it. I had an enlightenment experience when I was 26 years old, when I was the official court reporter right here on the island of Maui, from which we're speaking from. So aloha, everyone. And I was looking for something greater, but I didn't know it. And I had an enlightenment experience. And within 2 years, or a year after that happening, I met the great Buckminster Fuller. And then, of course, I went on to go and attend the first business school for entrepreneurs of its kind. And pretty much what happened was that I was trying to get away from the internal pain that I had been experiencing from the time I was 18, when my beautiful beloved was killed in a car accident, and then I lost his baby 5 months later. So honestly, it was pain. But then I also knew intuitively that there was something greater for me to do than just to be a court reporter or grow up to be an attorney, that there was something greater for me, not just about self, but that it had to do with another. But I have to tell you, I did not have the language for all of that. I can go back and speak about it, but I didn't have the language. So many of us, many of you have that conflict too. You know you're supposed to be doing something else, but yet you don't quite know how to verbalize it.
You know, that's so interesting that you bring that up, because a lot of people, their biggest fear is that if they do embrace a path, that they see of themselves bigger than they are. A lot of times there's a catchphrase now in the zeitgeist saying that, you know, not playing small. Marianne Williamson speaks about that. But people are afraid. They're afraid of going out there. They're afraid of doing more. They're afraid of earning more because they're afraid to be attacked. They're afraid that things are going to be taken from them. They're afraid of failure. What would you have to say to those individuals who earnestly want to grow?
Well, there's two things. One of them is that they are correct that we live in an environment, we live in a world of scarcity. All of our financial, economic systems around the world are based on on lack, on scarcity. You know, we're still working on the Malthusian theory of economics, which is the management of scarce resources. And so we're still living in that place. So for those of us who are looking to do something much greater than that, then what happens is that we get pulled by that. And then there's all of these things that get said. I mean, you know, you and I met in Clubhouse, and I'm still so grateful for the One Percenters Only Room and Jay Nolan, and of course, Mo Rock and that whole gang that got us all together. I could hear, you can hear it. Some of the most successful people in our industry will talk about, oh yeah, the more successful you get, the more that people are going to want to knock you down. That is not my experience at all. I actually feel that, yes, I have had a couple of hits. There's no question about it. But I actually shifted them by my own beingness, by being a Hooponopono practitioner, by being aware that that fear was within me. And I am so powerful. You are so powerful. Everyone is so powerful. There isn't one person that is more powerful than another. And so with that energy, with that frequency, with that vibration, when we have that belief, we will begin to attract it. So one of the things I want to recommend to everyone is to shift into the affirmation that I did, which is that everyone wants to support me. Everyone loves me. Everyone is behind me. They want me to succeed. They want me to win. They want me to live a good life. They want me to be healthy. And when I began to say that, it was interesting because the whole world began to shift. So there is the outside, a world of scarcity, but truly sufficiency and beliefs that get created out there come from within. So change that, and genuinely, moment to moment to moment, self-mastery.
Self-mastery. Does that require learning? Does that require studying the masters to master self? How does somebody delve into self-mastery in order to take the path that you've taken?
You become a witness to your life. This is what the enlightened people say. You actually watch yourself like a little bug. You are the number one experiment. You are the most important person, not from an egotistical point of view, but from the understanding that, excuse me, from the understanding that it's all coming from within you. So the way that you reach self-mastery is, yes, you have to read the beautiful books, you know, all the different aspects of business and self-development, you know, Think and Grow Rich, you know, the science of getting rich. Those are some of the basics. And then, of course, there are other books that we've all have written that we can name, that we can make a list for everyone in the site. But one of the things that you need to understand that is moment to moment to moment. So you begin to have practices, like, for instance, when you get really activated, like there was something that I thought had happened the other day, and you take 3 deep breaths. And very slowly, you take 3 deep breaths and just watch yourself. And instead of going into reaction, which you are already in, because immediately, the ego, not the ego, actually our reptilian brain will get activated immediately when we think we are in any kind of danger, whether it's real or imagined. So when you take those 3 deep breaths, what happens is you have a minute to reset and to make a choice on what you're going to do at that particular moment in that particular situation. So, jails are full of people that did not have that self mastery, that they crossed that line and did something that completely changed their lives, the lives of others, and they have created such chaos. And some of them are in there for life because of one moment that they didn't have the ability to be able to take 3 deep breaths. People get divorces, they close down businesses, they open up businesses, they leave their families, or they do all kinds of crazy things by not taking the time to really ponder, how is that the right thing for them to do? And then if it is the right thing, then do a plan so that you can elegantly come out of a situation and make it so that it is much more palatable for all involved. That is self-mastery. It's moment to moment to moment. It's not just going to a weekend program or having a coach or doing a 10-week coaching program. It is actually a lifelong practice.
I really love that, the lifelong practice of breathing as well. So taking a couple deep breaths, I'm going to try that now. So we're taking these 3 deep breaths and we're ready to take a leap. I want to ask you a question. There's been a lot of conversation about people not being able to find employees. Large companies, usually service industry companies, they're now feeling the crunch. They're having to pay people a little more to get them to work there. And what we found is that in California, starting last year, they issued the most business licenses than they ever have in history. Is there a correlation between the reason why these larger service industry companies can't find employees and that people are getting business licenses? It seems like there's a connection.
Absolutely. Well, there's a global paradigm shift that occur. And if you go to my Fridays with Doria and you watch any of the replays, I started even in my old Facebook back at the beginning of COVID. You can actually probably see one of my videos where I'm talking about what a global paradigm shift is. And the last one that happened in the world, believe it or not, happened in 1972, 73. I believe it's 72, when the oil crisis occurred. The one prior to this one was 9/11. The one prior to that was 1972, 73. And the one prior to that was World War II. That's how infrequent a global paradigm shift happens. When a global paradigm occurs, everything changes. Everything changes. And you cannot predict what those changes are. But all of us together worldwide right now are having to become very awake and really talk about taking deep breaths on a daily basis. You have to really just stand there and just figure out what is going on in your world, in your industry. So many big companies and many people are still acting like it's February 2020. But everything shifted. By the way, China and some of the other countries, they actually shifted in November, December 2019. We were just a little bit late into the game. And then on top of that, having social media and having the press and having just big megaphones for some pretty wild ideas out there, it has created such confusion. So it requires for us to be extremely not only being able to have self-mastery, but also getting educated from very neutral sources in what is really happening. So big companies, they are working under an old paradigm. And then one part of the old paradigm is that, profits first, not people first, but profits first. And then, of course, the media doesn't pay attention to all the companies that have actually put people first, that are doing really, really well. I know people. I know I mean, even money and new graduates like Bob Goldberg of Follow Your Heart, one of the most successful companies in health, in health food industry. They have gone through tremendous shift, but at the same time, they're money and new graduates, business school graduates, and they knew immediately, like, okay, let's just kind of like, we got to ride the wave and figure out what is really happening. Ride the wave and just be able to see what needs to occur next. And then at that point, right now, at that particular point, when you say, okay, let's see what's happening, then we begin the corrections. And like we teach in Money and You, as you remember, like the rocket to the moon, anything going out of space is correcting, not the ones that shoot off and we watch. But if they were going to go to the moon, they would be correcting all the time, because we're only on track 3% of the time. That's the same thing with human beings. So human beings forget that life is all about correction, correcting. We're not going straight from here to a particular result that we want to have, which we can and we can focus on. But then there's the 90 degrees, the precessional effects, the ripple effects, that creates a whole other set of information and circumstances. So basically what companies are not doing is they could be creating systems so that their best employees could remain working for them, but possibly in a different nature, maybe as consultants, maybe as self-employed. And that is not only for just big companies, but it's also for little companies, and it's for all of us. We are going through a global paradigm shift, which if you can just learn to ride with it, it's going to be one of the most magnificent changes. We're going to look back at this time 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and realize that some of the greatest discoveries have been made in medicine, in health, in money, in just about every institution. All of a sudden, everything is shifting. And people who are limited and people who are afraid of their own shadow sometimes are still leading, and they're still running and passing laws and things. But there's an emergence of consciousness that it is unstoppable. Nobody can stop it. It has happened. We knew it was coming. For those of us that have been working on ourselves for 44 years, we were hoping it would have happened 20 years ago, but it is now actually happening. And for those of us who have worked on ourselves, and all of you who are working on yourself, then you are more clear and center and can handle your emotions and your feelings and make decisions that are for the best for you, your family, your businesses, and for humanity.
That's fascinating how you say that, because a lot of times people are making business decisions based on other people's business decisions. And to say that we really want to make these decisions based on us, that means that we have to be more in the driver's seat in our lives, doesn't it? You seem to be
Absolutely.
a very empowering figure when it comes to having people really find out what is right for them. And of course, we spoke about how business is really important to you because you feel that business can help to solve a lot of issues because it can generate money. Money can help with a lot of issues. You're a renowned philanthropist, and I can't even imagine what that is like when you see so much need, and yet you're coming from a place of abundance. Can we speak about that, about wealth and the scarcity state of mind? When people give, like tithing or being a philanthropist like yourself and like many people would like to be, does that cut into your wealth? Does that kind of stall it and you have to work a little harder? Do I have to create another business just to be able to give? Or does wealth actually infuse more giving? Does it infuse more wealth? That seems to be a question that people talk about all the time, also on Clubhouse.
Well, not wealth. Actually, is the person. I know some very poor, rich people. It is so sad. They will quabble. They will take somebody's soul for over $1,000. I had a business partner that I let go of, and it was over $100 a month that they wanted to raise on a little family, a little Mexican family that had been living in a home for 15 years. And they decided to raise the money only $100, which I knew that they had more than enough. And I even volunteered to pay that extra $100 to them so they wouldn't kick that family. But that wasn't it. It was this attitude that, oh yeah, well, they have to learn for themselves. They have to really grow up and know that money runs the world, so they're going to have to grow up. That energy is what is really, then they are projecting it onto others, but actually what's happening is that they're living in total scarcity and they project it onto others. So it doesn't matter how much money a person has. When a person comes from total sufficiency, what happens is that the world actually transforms. And again, and I shouldn't say total sufficiency, I should just say sufficiency, because there are aspects of those of us who have been living in sufficiency for many years where we can feel scarcity about certain things. But when you speak it, when you recognize it, when you say, oh my God, I just came from such scarcity about that, then you realize, see what I'm talking about? Moment to moment to moment, right? Then you can shift it at that time. So sufficiency is when you really get that you have enough, that you have enough, even the ability, you have sufficient ability to be able to get yourself out of any trouble, that you really need to stop spending money on stupid things. I mean, a lot of people that have challenges around money will not hesitate to waste all this money on what our mentor used to call duda. Kiyosaki and Sharon Lecter made that very famous. It's a Texan word for duda, which means just stuff. And so retail therapy, the big company, the big stores count on us to have retail therapy tendencies because it makes us feel better for a little while, but then you go home and now you are in debt. So to go back, to this point of scarcity, scarcity is everywhere. So it's like you need to surround yourself. You need to be, I mean, if you need to listen to conversations like this on a daily basis, that's what I love about Clubhouse. That's what I love about many of the different groups that we all hang out in, is that we're constantly reminding each other that we're there for each other. So we go into my new definition of wealth, which is to have access to cash, access to speakers, access to information, to cash, to investments, to people that can support you. And so, and you all have heard me say this many times, all of us are so much more wealthier. And I really want you to get this, because this is self-mastery. Every moment that we spend with a group of people like we all are together here, we are getting wealthier. And then we're just reprogramming ourselves. We're literally reprogramming ourselves. And right now, what you need to know, that when you are in a global paradigm shift, what is happening is that we're going to give birth to a new world. It's going to be a birth of you. It's going to be a new birth of you being different. And that is scary for all of us. There's some of us that don't like change. Most people think I really love change. I actually don't. I don't like change. I really like things to stay the way they used to be. But I absolutely get that change is scary. And right now, the world can be scary, but not if you keep taking those 3 deep breaths.
Well, I love that. It's interesting because your definition of wealth and access to a lot of resources is actually wealth as well. And one of those resources I wanted to introduce to everyone, the LA Tribune is a platform that we have this talk show. And Mo Rock is the CEO, as you know, Dame Dora, you're good friends with Mo Rock. And his goal is to be part of that paradigm shift. And he sees how this works. And the history that he is so bound to from the LA Tribune is something that he wants to build upon even more so. And with that, I'd like us to take a little break so that we can learn a little more about the history of the Los Angeles Tribune, and then we'll be back with more Dame Doria.
Hello and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune. Since 1886, our name has been a part of the world of journalism. We have earned a reputation for being a publication that practices integrity, authenticity, and responsibility. For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And we're back with Dame Doria Cordova. And we were just speaking about the new definition of wealth. And while we're at that, I probably should plug your book because I love it. It's called Access to Cash. And I often call it, Dame Doria, I misname it, calling Access to Wealth, because you really map out all of the different aspects. And when you talk about looking within, you basically map out that there are 4 ways that we make wealth. And one of them being the lottery, which quite frankly, we would love to win the lottery, but doesn't always happen. And you move on. Now, this revision, which has already been a best-selling, the first week, you were hitting so many best-selling lists, and for good reason, because you also added a chapter on cryptocurrency. May I speak about your age? The reason why is because of the fact that you are not the age of what I feel is the average cryptocurrency investor. Could you speak to us why digital currency matters and why cryptocurrency may be something that we would want to look at in order for us to move forward with the wealth of our lives?
Thank you so much. Before I talk about it, though, I want to make it very clear to everyone that I do not have it in my own wallet. It's away from me. So just in case there's anybody out there that wants to start hacking me and looking for my crypto, it is not in anywhere near me. That's one of my tricks. I have access to people that can keep it really safe in a real far away place. So that's by the way, is intelligence. Because a lot of people like to speak about that, but cryptocurrency is a new paradigm. It's actually is something that, I'm in my early 70s. I just had my birthday, and the reason why I stay so young is because I like to hang out with young people. But also one of the core teachings in our business school for entrepreneurs is new technologies. So like right now, here we are using all these different platforms where we were dreaming about being able to educate like this, and here we are. Because of COVID, we all now learn how to do Zoom, how to do these different platforms, and we're educating each other, and there's a lot of free education. So there's new paradigms that are coming up, including the way that money is going to be handled. Now, obviously, crypto is not going to replace, money as we know it today, not now. It might in the future. I don't know. I can't tell you that. I wouldn't dare to predict something like that. But I do know that there's new things that are coming up. So again, a paradigm shift has occurred. So when you talk to people, and some of them are very young people that just kind of cannot get their mind across that something just got created, they don't realize the same thing happens with money. Money just gets printed. There is all kinds of when people really don't understand economics, and there's also different types of economics. So I like to listen to the enlightened economists. And I had an uncle who was an economist and taught it at the University of Chile. And so I kind of grew up around that environment. And one of the things that you need to understand is that you need to be really flexible. And I'm kind of answering the question in a roundabout way. But one of the things that you need to know is that you can't let yourself get old. And the people that succeed the most are the people who are at the fringes. And people at the fringes are those people who are just looking at what's coming up. And a lot of people in the fringes make a lot of mistakes. And they don't care because they know that it's the nature of being successful. So now you have and of course you have to follow all the laws. So I was talking to someone the other day and they go, oh yes, I'm on my way to this to launch my own crypto, my own coin, my own token. And I said, oh, you're going to do an initial coin offering. And then they went, no, we don't need to do that. And I said, yes, you do need to do that. And they go, no, there's ways around it and all this and that. Well, it's just like taking a company public in many ways. Now, there's all kinds of people right now that are going to start arguing with me. But honestly, I'm not the expert, but this is where it requires for you to get very educated as we're moving into that field. Now, the IRS, the SEC, and all the financial institutions already are accepting crypto. As a matter of fact, my sweetie just noticed that there was a ATM for crypto right here in Kihei and near Wailea, where we live up above. And it was like, oh, how interesting. It just showed up. It just got installed. I said, yeah, of course. Of course, there's all kinds of people that come to Maui that need to get into their wallets. And so it's all around them. But when you don't see those things, then what you're doing is you're going into a world of denial. And this is my great teacher, Sandra Ray, said something to me long ago when I was 27 years old. She said to me, just because you don't believe it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I'm going to repeat that. Just because you don't believe it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So the way that our mind works, our brain works, we just think it only exists if we believe in it. So that's why it's so important for you to really be expanded, to be young at thinking, young at heart, so that you can go ahead and accept all these different changes and see what are the things that actually work for you and what doesn't work for you with your lifestyle, with your values, and where it is taking you. Whenever you make a decision about anything, take a look at where it's going to land you 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So for me to invest in something like a crypto or like buying some Bitcoin and everything, it was like money that I could spare. And it has paid off, because I was there at the right time. For some of my friends, it has really paid off because they never dreamed that they would have $100 million that they could cash out tomorrow, and they do.
On crypto.
On Bitcoin.
That's so interesting because you may have seen, your husband saw in Maui a ATM, and I saw an ATM in the middle of nowhere in Oregon. And it was in a grocery store, and it was for Bitcoin. And I couldn't believe it. And I took a picture of it because I thought, am I really seeing this? Because I wanted to go back and say, hey, look what I saw. So it's interesting looking at what you're saying is paying attention and to really see where things are going. People in the financial world, they often talk about trends and they see trends. And you're talking about paradigm shifts. And that's interesting. One paradigm shift.
Well, one global paradigm shift. Paradigms change all the time. Joel Bauer, I think, no, what is his name? There is a man who wrote the best book on paradigm shifts. And we used to do that video in the late 80s. Kiyosaki and I bought that video. It was $1,500 at the time. And I think it's Joel Bauer. And he had a code that you could not copy it. And it was all about paradigm shifts. And he has a book. So you have to understand this. So a global paradigm shift is when the whole world changes, whether you like it or not. And then there is paradigm shifts that occur in your own life. And for instance, a paradigm shift is when you get married and now you have someone else to share your life with. A paradigm shift is when you have a child and everything changes. A paradigm shift is when somebody gets very ill and they'll be given a certain amount of time to live. Paradigm shift is when someone in your family that you were not ready for dies. And so those are called paradigm shifts because everything in your life just changes. You're standing right there and you go, oh my God, life will never be the same again. Some of them are tiny and some of them are big, but it will never be the same again. And that is painful. For some of us, that is painful. We don't want to admit that things are not going to be the same again. And it is hard. And whoever in the world told you that life was going to be easy. Now, this is where I become a real tough mentor, because I truly believe, and what I discovered when I was 27 years old, that I had control over nothing. There isn't anything I had control over, because I had all these friends dying. I miscarried 2 babies. We were in the midst of the Vietnam War had happened, the craziest thing. People, instead of voting them out of offices, they were being killed. I mean, it was, the 70s was horrendous. And what I found out was that the only thing I had control over was my consciousness. That was it. The minute that I got that took me a little while to accept, but that was a personal paradigm shift that was so profound. It's what you're calling, this is what your whole show is about, right? It has to do with igniting your essence.
Yes.
That is what happens, is when something happens, then you have to tap into your essence. And you might ignite your essence 3 times a year. It's not a one-time only process. It's like what needs to occur next, and what needs to occur next and next. And so and I know I'm scaring some people right now, but life is not easy. But what is easy, let me make you feel real quick, real fast, feel better. What is easy for you to shift on the 10 things, let's do 5 just to be nice. 5 things that you can do to solve that big problem that just scare you to death. You have to come up with alternatives. There's always a choice. I want you to always say this. There's always a choice. There's always a choice to elegantly leave a situation. People do not give themselves that choice, because in their head, they're looking at all the negativity of that without looking at all the positive of that. And so instead, what you have to do is train yourself. There's always a choice. You can always say no. You can always say yes. And what you have to do is you need to take a look at the consequences of that particular decision and stop. Sometimes you need time. You don't need to, when people threaten you and say, well, you have to make the decision right now, short of them having a gun to your head, seriously, and now that's a different situation. But short of somebody having a gun to your head, you always have time. And what you have to do is you have to go ahead and take that time in making decisions that are grounded, where you're standing in your own authority. Come and do my Hooponopono prayer every other week. December 17th, we're doing the next one. Do this one because it's for Christmas and New Year's, which brings up so many feelings. 9 a.m., California time. Come and do Hooponopono so that you can align your inner family, the Amakua, the Uhana, the Unihipili, and stand so straight in your own authority that when things come at you, because things are going to come at you, unless you are living in a cave, things are going to happen. But you have the ability to be able to handle it. It's only when you bring forward your inner child, your little girl, your little boy is the one that can handle it. Now, you are going to be emotional. You are going to cry for a few days. You might cry for a week. You might cry for a month. It's totally okay for you to cry. But then you need to understand that you need to then have anchors like this too shall pass. I need to ask for support. I'm wealthy in support. Who do I need to go to? Who do I go to and ask for help? Because I need the help so much right now. And then at that point, you're creating little legs, and that are going to grow to be big legs of you being able to stand in your own right, in your own might, in your own light. Oh, I can handle this. I can do this. And at first you may fake it a little bit. That you can fake, not the other kind of fake. You can just go, I can do this. I can do this. And this is why I love Tony Robbins. Aside from the fact we discovered him and put him on his first airplane, right? To go do his first fire walk to our graduates in Hawaii. I remember walking on fire, Kulmas. I still say, Kulmas, I can handle this. I know I can do this. So those are the different tools. But for you to think that life is not hard, it is hard. And it is easy for you because you know how to handle it. So do you see that dichotomy? Do you want to say anything about that?
Yes.
Go ahead. What say you?
What say me? Well, that dichotomy that you're talking about, it's a conflict that a lot of people have, right? And I have to say that I'd never really practiced Ho'oponopono. I didn't quite understand it, and the way you were talking about it, it's just a mindset. Whether you really embrace the spirituality aspect, you're still training your mind to release things and to transmute things and to transmute the energy. Something does happen though, and I wanted to kind of throw that back to you, Dame Doria, because of the fact that you have said you have the trappings of success that a lot of people wish that they had. And a lot of times when people ask them, how did you get to where you are? And they say, oh, well, I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning and da, 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 and they just kind of go through a laundry list of things that they've done. I've asked you in the past, and you say, well, the teachings of Buckminster Fuller from Money and You, and also Ho'oponopono. It's been powered by Ho'oponopono.
Yeah.
And I thought that it's an amazing tool because a lot of times when you've had like bad business partnerships, or perhaps there's something that you can't let go, relationships always come up. And this is like a vehicle, that practice of
Yeah.
releasing. And whether or not someone wants to embrace the practice of Ho'oponopono, I welcome them to please understand that there's a dichotomy between our different levels of self. You talked about the different levels of the inner self, the outer self, and then you have the inner child, and they need to be working together. And if they aren't, it's going to spill out somewhere, and those successes do affect. You've touched so many lives, and you've helped so many people. And the one thing that I've learned from you, Dame Doria, is through your example, is you believe in teams. And because of that, our own
Mm.
team, our production, my own life, things have shifted. Talk about a paradigm shift in my own life. But can we speak a little bit about teams and how that really works for helping the world as well? A lot of times we talk about teams in business, but how does really streamlining a team help us to also change the world for the better?
Well, there's no such thing as a solopreneur. That is not true at all. There's always a group of people, whether it's your spouse at home, your children who are helping you pack things to send, for your customers. There's always a team there somewhere. Unless you are in a cave or you're like a web guy or you're in the dark web and you're somewhere in your mother's basement, working somewhere, most people have a team. Okay. So then you have your own team, you have your family team, you have your spouse, and then you actually also have other teams. And some of them are people, and you can see right here from Money and You, how to build teams, right? How to build aligned teams. But then there's also another kind of team. And that is the ones where you find people who have aligned purposes to yours. So like today, I was so excited because I was telling, we were in a beautiful group with Camille. Camille Robb is having their celebration today. They had spontaneous celebration of her books on Women Gone Wild. And I said, oh, I got to go, because I got to go support, I was talking about Shmiko and you and Ava, and everyone in the team. And then I said to them, and then I said, and I was so excited because I feel like you are my team. You are my team. It's like, oh, there's a whole group of people now that I can come in and support. And my Ibarra, I keep thinking of her name. Her last name, Ibarra, reminds me of, it's a long story. I got to tell her later. It's a beautiful story from Chile. So I just remember her last name, but she's part of the team. So you guys are my team. You are my
Yes.
team and I'm your team. There is an assumption that we are going to support each other. And then if you ever get down and out, I know that you all know that you can call me up and you can say, we really need help. We really screwed up here. We're like facing whatever, what can we do? At this point, you know that you can call me and I would ask you to find at least five ways to get out of the trouble you got into. The same thing with me. And that's why I feel safe in the world, because I know that I can just call you guys up and go, oh my God, I need to get pulled out with this huge spatula off the floor because I am so despondent right now. I'm so heartbroken. I'm so upset. I'm so hurt. And then you all would just rally up around me. That is the kind of energy that everyone needs to create and understand, that that's part of the global paradigm shift. That is the good part. There's a lot of good things in the global paradigm shift. And one of them is all of us that we get together in Clubhouse, we get together in Zoom, we get together in these different beautiful, beautiful platforms. Really, Michelle, when we first met, did you ever imagine you were going to be doing this today, right? And thank you for having
I did not. However, I have to admit that one of my secret wishes when this opportunity to join the Los Angeles Tribune team was offered to me, one of my secret wishes was to actually interview you on the show, and here you are as the first guest. And I wanted to be able to delve into these discussions. I wanted to ask you, well, how did it feel when you got on the airplane and you were so full of pain and you moved to Maui and something happened? It just exploded and your life changed, and step by step by step. We did have a question that came across from one of our viewers, and it was how you were able to. It was by Kathy McAfee, and in fact, Kathy McAfee is going to be one of our guests next week, Dame Doria, and I think that you'll really find her fascinating because she's all about building community. She says, "Can you share your thoughts on the importance of building momentum in your business and life?"
Okay, so very quickly, just for those that might have heard that little story about how I got on a plane and moved to Maui, I think they might be talking about my original trip to Hawaii, right? Back in
Yes.
1976, when I had that, it was actually 75, I believe, when I find my world falling apart in the court system, and I moved to Hawaii and I became the first court reporter on Maui, right? Well, I was just running away at that time. That was a different kind of getting on the airplane than I do now. So momentum happened by you showing up, like we all show up. We just show up. We show up wherever we're needed. We show up to meetings, we show up. And not, what am I going to get out of this? Like, I was talking to a very successful girlfriend of mine, and she's very big and all this and that. She goes, I don't know why you waste all your time spending all that time in Clubhouse, and you go into all these little, programs that have very little people. She goes, I only go to people when I can be guaranteed that there's going to be 1,000 people there and all this and that. And I took a deep breath and I said, we have very different purposes. Mine is not how many sales I'm going to make that month. It's simple. It is very simple. And I am so used to being around winners, and I recognize them. And so just remember, you guys, okay, just remember, I was there when Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen had not even thought about chicken soup for the soul. I was there when how can I forget his name? Ben Cohen still was making ice cream, Ben and Jerry's in his garage. I was there when Paul Mitchell barely was making it, when, Paul Mitchell's hair products, they didn't become famous until many years later, and he passed away in 1989. These guys did Money and You in 79 or 1980, 81. I was there when Tony Robbins was doing, he's doing his firewalks in a backyard. I have to say, of all those people I just mentioned, I definitely knew that Tony Robbins was going to be as big as he is, because he's a freaking rock star from the beginning, right? But not everyone is that way. I was there when Kiyosaki was still printing T-shirts, back in 1980 in Honolulu. So I am there. I have been there for the beginning of so many different people, and it is one of my joys in life. So it depends on how you measure. How do you pick up momentum? You hang around people that have the spirit, that have the energy, that have a clear purpose, that have a beautiful purpose. They have the essence of wanting to make a difference and are putting it in place. I mean, when I heard how much you guys worked on this, it was like, good girls, and it's like, and so good, you spend your time, you spend your energy, and then you all kind of came to Money and You together and did all these things, Ava constantly, and
Shimiko Cole.
Oh yes, of course, being in logistics and all that. So now you begin to recognize After 4 decades, you begin to recognize people, but not just for that reason. You don't show up for them not just for that reason. Sometimes you show up for them. Look, Kiyosaki and I did a preview in the Big Island one that had one participant. We flew all the way from Oahu to the Big Island, and it was a total flop, but we got 100% registration because the guy enrolled into Money and You. So we always used to laugh, but we got 100% registration. Now, you just have to really have more of a pure heart. And I want to really encourage all of you. Stop going with that little head of yours. Begin to sit a little longer looking at that the sunset. Take a little longer in playing with your child. Take a little longer in maybe just being meditating maybe twice a day, checking in with you, and just go, what makes my heart sing? And nothing will turn faster than that into cash. Heart sings equal cash. I want you to really get this. And everyone that I know that is just focused on money alone, they have the most amazing lives. They waste all their money. Oh, when it's just about money, in attorneys and all this and this. And I'm going to share something that's a little bit private here in public, because I had this little incident of people that didn't know how much, Kiyosaki had been around us for 17 years, and quite a bit of the first book, not the real estate part, but those real estate part, all the rich dads he met at Money and You and the business school, and they did not realize that he taught Money and You and, business school, and was around us for 17 years. And so, and sometimes I send little letters to some of my promoting partners, not to me, but promoting partners. And I just decided to go to the people and just start a conversation with them. The challenge is like they had no idea. They actually thought he had created all of that. And it's like, and we didn't even create it. It was Buckminster Fuller who started speaking in the 30s and the 40s that our educational system did not work, that it was creating employees, that it was the reason schools go from September through June is so that the children could go to work in the farms during the summer. The reason why we have time savings, daylight savings systems, that comes from people being workers. Our schools, our universities are all designed to teach you how to work for another, to be a specialist as opposed to a generalist. Guess what? We didn't even create that. It was Buckminster Fuller. But he loved us and he hung out with us for 6 years until his death, because he was in awe of how we could have business schools that were teaching his principles and teaching people to move from scarcity to sufficiency to abundance. None of that is new. But what happens is that when people then begin to understand that these are timeless principles that have been put on by amazing human beings. My mentor, Marshall Thurber and Bobby DePorter, were the people that put flip charts, color markers, and music in the educational space. If you see that, it came from Mothership, them. And
now it's with every training series, it seems. They all have music, they all have staging. And
now we need to put it in regular schools, right? But that's why we have a parallel educational system. So you see, when you stay with values, with purpose, and you share, Kiyosaki's history is so amazing. I wish I could write about it someday, but it's all, sometimes people want to, see the money part and the real estate part and all this part. Fantastic. Yes, great stuff. Learn from rich dads met at Money and You and the business school. And so one of the things that happened, now you take Sharon Lecter, his business partner, amazing human being who already was established in the publishing universe. And she came along and talk about building teams. So we go back to the original question. Let's keep building teams to answer a question, which I'm going to say, how do we make the world work for 100% of humanity? Through spontaneous cooperation or in the shortest possible time without any ecological offense or disadvantage of anyone. When you answer that question with product or services, the chances of you succeeding, the chances of you lasting long, the chances of you being able to last and to be able to see the trends, because there's so many problems that need to be solved. You want to make a ton of money? Solve the hunger project. You want to make a ton of money? Solve the homeless problem. You want to make a ton of money? Solve the environmental problem. You will become a zillionaire.
Wow. So now we're moving into one of my favorite parts. And before that, we're going to have a little bit of break because we're going to really open up about this question. I call it the question you just asked. It's something that I think about all the time, and it excites me that we can actually apply this in our lives in business as well, answering this question and still build wealth. But how does a person, we're talking about igniting your essence, and oftentimes I feel that people feel that your essence is your passion. And I feel that that's kind of a misnomer because we're talking about what truly is your power within. Your passion's not your power within. It can help power you. And yet, Dame Doria, you have been there for, you gave Tony Robbins' first plane ride. You're like, hey, you and your team, you're like, hey, let's check out this kid who does firewalks. You were there at all those times. How you're the power behind the power, basically. But how do we become the power behind the power? We're building our teams and we're moving along, but we want to make sure that if we're living in that world of abundance, we want to make sure that other people can also have a chance. We want to open doors. Because there's enough. The abundance mindset is there's enough for everyone, correct?
Yes.
So how do you identify those people with their essence and say, hey, this kid is something amazing. He's just not setting his lawn on fire in the backyard. He's actually doing something transformative. What do you look at? What do you find?
I didn't. I was sent there by Marshall Thurber. I was too young. I was 33 years old. Tony was 23. I was 33. Marshall Thurber had read all these books on neurolinguistic programming, and somebody said, hey, there's this really charismatic kid. He's really tall, and he's using neurolinguistic and teaching people how to walk on fire. And then out of the team, and of course, I was already his business partner and doing really well as his promoting partner. He says, hey, DC, you love that stuff. He says, you want to go walk on fire? And I go, oh, I heard about that back in 1980. There were the spiritual people up in San Francisco. They were doing it for a different reason. They go, well, go check him out. And if he's really good, then we'll go ahead and put him with our money, and you we'll see, because we need other programs besides our own programs. We need the breakthrough stuff. Neurolinguistic is coming on the planet, right? Rex Sykes was probably somewhere. Well, I wish we would have met Rex Sykes at the time, right? Because Rex and I were growing up together at the time. And that's how I ended up going. And then, of course, he already had been in airplanes, but we put him on an airplane to Hawaii to go with the Money and You network. Now, just so that you will see that. See, he came and got supported by a certain team of people, a family, an ohana called Money and You. Then we sent them to Colorado. Then all these people wanted to support him. So then we started creating planning groups for him and all this and that. He bought his first beautiful castle through a guy named Sandy Shapery, a guy that built a huge building in San Diego that has all the 5 sites with green that always shows in downtown San Diego. Sandy Shapery sold that to a big company. He was one of our richest graduates in there. And then from there, it just kind of goes. I'm going to write a book someday, and they're all wonderful books, on how you
Can't
get
wait
there.
to read it.
So what happens is, and I want to address something that you said about essence, because I think that's very important. So you don't. Yes, there will be certain people that you will recognize, and you will recognize their essence. But a lot of times, this is what I have learned, and I could be completely wrong, but this worked for me. I work on my essence. I let my essence come out more, and then something greater kind of pulls me into people that resonate and vibrate similar to me, and we click. And some people we do things for a short time, some people we do longer, and some people we do for a long time. So I'm so grateful to Kim and Robert Kiyosaki. I got to be with them for 9 years. I was there when he met Kim. And so what happened was that for 9 years we were business partners, and then it was time to move on. Him investments, me continue with my work and a whole other things. So I recognize your essence and the team's essence, and we purr around each other. We're like little kittens, we purr. We just love being with each other, right?
You just want to
And
build.
we want to build, and there's equality. See,
Yes.
equality doesn't come from how much money you have. And I also purr with some friends of mine that are billionaires and that are some of the most famous people you met. I also purr with them. And you might purr with them because you have very similar essence too, but others you won't. So it's like, again, having accessibility to as many people and as many groups, and you need to get out there and don't be so judgmental. Like, oh, I'm only going to go to that group because I'm going to get something out of it. You could go into a networking event and find that one person that's going to finance your business. So you kind of like open up your radar and speak clearly about what you stand for. Work on yourself, and really, and if you're not clear, actually say that I am on a search. I'm searching for what I'm really meant to do. And then you'll find people that go, oh, I do that too. And I read this book and I did this. Oh, and you should meet so-and-so. You should watch this. Next thing you know, you're like always looking for clues. Tony got that quote from somebody: success leaves clues. It's like a beautiful thing. So essence is something that you feel, but the more you have to be very clear within yourself. If you drink too much alcohol, if you are always constantly, smoking pot, you're doing too many of the plant medicine and all this and that, just it's good, I guess. I don't do any of those things anymore because they cloud my judgment. I did it in the 70s. Been there, done that.
You left it in the 70s.
I like sobriety. Sobriety works for me, and I can feel people's essence a lot faster.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dame Doria. I need to bring up somebody that I did not realize was such an incredible humanitarian, and that's Ted Turner. And I want, before we speak about Ted, can I ask you a question here?
Yes.
Eradicating world hunger. Why is this your personal issue? Why is this part of your legacy?
I have no idea. I've never been hungry. My mother, my family, I was just with my family. What the heck? When did you ever go hungry? We have so much food in our family, it's ridiculous. I have no idea. I was born with it. I tried to adopt a homeless child when I was an only child when I was about 6. It was one of the biggest heartbreak for my family because they had to put that little homeless boy back on the streets. And I cried. I couldn't figure out why. I needed a brother and he needed a home. Why couldn't I keep him? And I was just born with it. And then when I met Buckminster Fuller when I was 27 years old, it was the first time that I heard truth. And I think I came to this world to do that. I don't know, because it drives me nuts. I just cannot believe when Buckminster Fuller said by the early 70s, we had more than enough to feed everyone, to have clean water, to have refrigeration, electricity, education for everyone on planet Earth, that we were no longer functioning under that old paradigm. Just something sparked in me. And then it just became like, not an obsession, but like, what do I need to do? So people say, oh, you must work with a lot of hungry children. No, I was just telling Camille Robb, I admire her so much because she's the one that's working with children. I cry my eyes out. I support many things, and I have a hard time going there. The first time I saw HIV children that I had been supporting for years, I didn't want to go. I cried for 2 days. Then I met them, and they were fine. I wasn't ready for when I met the mothers that were dying of AIDS. That I was not ready for. So some of us, we're a little bit, I'm a big chicken, and I have a real soft heart. I cry very easily, but I can support. So you may not see me picking homeless off the streets, but you see me supporting the Letitia Wrights of the world that created a whole thing about adopt a homeless, which was one of my ideas. So it's like, I have no idea. We don't need to know why. But one of the things that has happened is that out of the Money and You, out of the business school, we have had people like the Reach Foundation in Australia that takes care of 200,000 teenagers in Australia because they have so many problems there. And then the Lighthouse Foundation. These are Money and You business school graduates that grew up in creating the most amazing foundations. See, that's all you have to do is churn out. I churn out social entrepreneurs. That's my job. That's my job. And then they go do all these things. I don't hear from certain people for 10 years. They go, oh, I did Money and You and then decided to go solve this problem. And I did. And look what I did. And I just like, I start crying. I didn't know they were doing that. So I don't need to know. We're little bees, right? We're going from flower to flower and we're pollinating the garden, the world with good deeds.
Good deeds. And your deeds are getting bigger. I want to still speak about this. I came in on the conversation when we were together, and someone said, well, we talked about world hunger, and the question that was posed and that you had mentioned is, you asked us a question about it. You said, do you think there's enough food to feed everyone to satisfaction? And it made me have to think about it. And I thought, yes, I believe there is. So do you think that hunger, that world hunger, is due to not enough food? No. And so the question was, well, then what was it? And the answer was, it's a distribution issue. And so as a result, you're moving even higher working on this. You're helping to support entrepreneurs, but you're also encouraging people of great wealth who want to give to perhaps look at this direction, because there is a figure, isn't there, Dame Doria? There's a figure that was figured out as to how much it would cost to eradicate world hunger at this moment. Could you please share with us that figure?
It's actually, that figure has been lowered to 60 billion. And but I'm still going to say 100 billion. Just everything always costs more and it takes longer. Yes, net. My famous Chinese. I didn't make that up. The Chinese did. Anywhere in China, everybody goes net. What is it really going to cost after taxes, after surtaxes? Net. How much? My favorite word. Basically, there are organizations around the world, NGOs, the United Nations. Once you tap into that area, like today, we were doing a prayer for peace around the world. You can go see it on my Facebook. And I was with a group of people, and my God, some of the greatest humanitarians were there. And we were doing a beautiful peace prayer. Whenever I do any of those, you guys have to come in because the people in there are fascinating. It's a whole other universe. Human beings are completely committed to solving some of the world's biggest problems. So it has been figured out that it would cost, at the original price was 100 billion. And that would handle hunger. It would also you have to pay off warlords. You have to bribe people. It is a reality in the world. So for you to say, oh, well, we're only going to do it through governments. No, that's not how hunger works. You have to go into war torns. You have to deal with all kinds of things. I mean, you may have to go and create peace in certain areas because they're the ones who hold up the food. So now, so then you now have extra money for a year out of the 100 billion. You now have enough to maintain that for a year. We need the systems then. There's all these NGOs that know how to do it. I don't know how to do this. I just like to activate. I make stuff up, and then other people tell me other stuff, or we make stuff together, and then we come up with all these great ideas, and then we kind of make it happen. So originally the Hunger Project, which still exists, is called the Hunger Project. There are millions of us, millions and millions. We are product of the Hunger Project. And at the time, the idea, and it was based on Buckminster Fuller's teachings when he said it could be done, and others. And by the year 2000, an idea whose time has come was to completely eradicate hunger. That did not happen. But it was okay. We didn't reach it. It was, we cut down quite a bit. So now, the big idea is to go ahead and get 100 billionaires each to contribute $1 billion towards this. I'm not going to manage it. I'm not going to handle it, but somebody who really knows how to manage $100 billion in handling this will show up. They will put their hand up. But now this idea, we're all putting it together. So then, of course, it didn't take long. You can go a couple of months ago when my friends all started texting me. Then when they started talking that going to the big billionaires here in America, each to contribute $6 billion, and that $40 billion would help eradicate hunger. And so now they're pitching these guys to contribute $6 billion. Well, contribute one. I'll give you a break, you guys. Just $1 billion, like Ted Turner. So Ted Turner was the first billionaire on the planet that contributed $1 billion to create the UN Foundation, which has solved so many problems. And just remember this, people go, well, they don't have $1 billion sitting on their account. Well, no, you give them installments, you give them time payments. Ted Turner did not pay it all at once. I think he gave 100 million for 10 years. Even billionaires need installments. Just remember that. Your new language, say that, say it all out loud. Even billionaires need installments. All right.
Even billionaires need installments. Of course.
It's a new paradigm shift. So now you have this idea, and make stuff up, you guys. Make it up, but don't make up dramas for your little life. And I don't mean that in the worst thing. See, the great thing about solving a really huge problem, that your little problems become little.
Yes. 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 Wow. It makes you really have that big perspective. I love flying in small aircraft because when you land, you're like, wow, the world went on, but this is an even easier way. You don't have to fly a little airplane. You can help try to solve what the world perceives are big problems and find solutions for it. Oh, Dame Doria, I could continue and go on and on and on about this, but unfortunately we have to close. But I wanted to also thank you also, and let everyone know, let our viewers know, and thank you so much for hanging on and so many amazing comments. I can't wait to go through. You made someone think, especially Kathy McCarthy, she was talking about, distribution is an issue for world hunger.
Yes, that's the only problem.
You are going to grace the inaugural issue of Leaders in Transformation magazine, Lit magazine. If you want to learn more, folks, in this audience, of this beautiful being who is doing so much with everyone and building with not only her wealth, but helping people to really direct it into a place that solves issues, please turn to this article. I wish we could put up the cover, but we will actually, as we roll the credits, you'll be able to see Dame Doria Cordova at the Lit magazine, on the Lit magazine cover, as well as checking out the Leaders in Transformation Lit magazine on Facebook. And you can also find the Ignite talk show on Facebook. And don't forget to like the Los Angeles Tribune TV show. I just wanted to thank you again, Dame Cordova. And I do say Dame because you have been knighted. And I think that's one of the coolest things. And you've been knighted for something that's really close to your heart, and that's through your philanthropy, correct? And being able to connect people and to be able to solve the problems. So there you have it, folks.
That's the only reason you get knighted for doing some great things. But I know we have to go, and this is a little long, but it is the launching. I want to address something that Rex and I'm reading some of the. I wish I could read all of them, but Rex is correct when he says think differently. We don't want to end hunger. We want to feed the people, operate from abundant thinking, not eradicating what we don't want. So I have taken that to the masters, Rex, and I have spoken with that. And this is unfortunately a state of affairs in our world still. we have to punch him in the nose. There's definitely no way. I mean, absolutely, he's correct. There are people that have done studies, and there's many organizations called Feed the Children, Feed this and Feed that. And unfortunately, in our world, we still have to speak sometimes with some punches that hits people, and it is negative. Eradicating poverty is definitely, but that is for a world that is for people that are higher frequency. We're working on that. We're going to get everyone there, but right now we're not there yet. So one of the things that we're finding is that we have to use unconscious words. And Rex is correct. And I'm also going with some of the masters. And I have noticed that it is a different, I tested it on a billionaire the other day, the difference between feeding and eradicating. And feeding was like the sweet, whatever. It is sweet. And it is a much higher frequency.
Like a care package.
Yes. But when you talk about, dude, you're letting freaking people starve to death. You do get that, right? You're letting people starve to death. And it's like, I am doing that. So something maybe, because I grew up in LA, I had to be a little tough. And I know that there's other people that I can talk to in a different way, but I do notice that I get a little bit more attention from certain people. So again, I'm tuning in, Rex. I'm tuning in. I'm learning how to speak to certain about feeding them. And then another one is like, don't freaking let people starve. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much, Dame Doria. And you referenced Rex Sykes, who beautiful author, beautiful mind, especially with NLP, but his book, Life on Your Terms, I can't tell you how many times I've had that book in my office and clients of mine look at it and go, life on my terms, I need that. And it's a beautiful way of really being able to take action, change our minds. And even you, Dame Doria, we called you in the One Percenters, the twin ends. If Rex clears you out, and Doria shows you the way after that. And so with that, I wanted to thank you so much for just gracing us with all of your knowledge. And once again, everybody, check out Lit Magazine. You'll learn more about Dame Doria Cordova, as well as her philanthropic efforts, because it is part of her legacy. And also, too, don't forget to like the Facebook page for Los Angeles Tribune. Check us out on YouTube. And also ignite your essence. Thank you so much for being an igniter. And we're going to move forward. We're going to have a new guest, Kathy McCarthy, next week. And we're going to delve in deep more about how we can ignite our essence and connect with people, as well as building communities within our business and also helping those in the underserved communities. So with that, I wanted to thank you so much. We're going to roll the credits. You'll be able to see a little more about the cover with Dame Doria and in the magazine of Lit, as well as able to see the team. We talked about teams, folks, and now you're going to see who are the team players with these productions. This is just our first episode. We're going to continue on next week. And of course, we're going to have a new co-host that's going to be on a different day, Michelle Wilson, who is also part of our team. Get ready. We're going to ignite your essence. Thank you so much for coming, and have a blessed day.
Aloha.